So it talks about global competition. It talks about sort of how Apple Computer made drastic changes in 1998. They used to manufacture Apple computers and Mac computers, but now they really don't manufacture anymore. They're having their manufacturing done mostly in Asia, mostly in China and Korea. They're getting their materials from various places in the world, and even their service. Well, how many times have you called up for some technical support, not just for computers, but for anything, and the person is in India or the Philippines? I always ask them where they said, "Hi, my name is Brian. Can I help you?" I said, "Brian? Where are you from, Brian?" And he says, "Well, Bombay," because you can tell by the accent. So that's not going to change. Some examples our book gives us. The big example I thought was Apple, and then there's a little thing about Nike and Procter & Gamble having plants and service departments all across the world. And why is this happening? I think we talked about this a little on Tuesday, mostly because of what? Cheaper labor. But other reasons? I think I mentioned that the factories in China that manufacture the iPhone are also manufacturing other phones, some of the competitors' phones. I mean, they just maybe slightly different components go into them, but it's a lot of the same components go into them. So these factories kind of specialize, and the American company or the European company doesn't have to specialize so much. They can just make lots of money selling these diversified products. So because of this, there's a lot more competition. I talked about if you learn in your entrepreneurial class, how to be an entrepreneur and go out and open up a restaurant. If you open up a restaurant, you're competing against Olive Garden and Pizza Hut and Cheesecake Factory and name all the chains. There's so many chains that are really successful. It's hard to go up against these people because they have the economy of scale. They're so big that they can get their supplies cheaper, and they also have perfected their systems. My daughter worked in a new restaurant that opened up last year, and it was a good restaurant with good food, but they didn't really have that many systems. They had no computer there. It was all done on paper, and they were kind of figuring it out as they went along. They did get customers because they did have good food, but they really weren't making that much money because they didn't have efficient systems. So these big companies are pretty tough to compete against. Now, I used to say in class, like 10 years ago, that one of the cool things about the internet was that the small guy could compete. You could have a web page and you could compete with the big company. And it's true. You just have to create a web page, and if people will find that web page, they might buy things from you. But these big companies, if you're trying to sell, music, Amazon has just got such efficient systems. It's pretty hard to compete, no matter what you're trying to sell. So here we go, efficient and effective, right? That's our favorite words in business classes. All right, talking about the information revolution. This book uses a term that I think I'm going to try to use. I keep saying IT, but they say ICT, which I really think is a better term, information and communication technology. So not only do we create, but we can deliver. We can send files over the net, or even over our local area network, or even the internet or the global internet, using information to be more effective. So we produce all kinds of documents, not only word processing documents and spreadsheets, but also media files like audio files, voice files, video files, and so on. In a global enterprise, a large company that's got branches all over the world, they need to share information quickly because of the differences in time zones, and they have to know what's happening. So if your warehouse is getting, think of Walmart was one of the first companies to do this. Acronym stand for JIT. I know you've learned that in other classes. JIT. Talking about inventory. Somebody? Just in time. And what does that mean, Samantha? I guess it kind of says it itself.
Yeah, it's kind of just in time.
Yeah, but we always don't want to define a word with the same word. But do you have an idea, Ben?
Well, I mean, the inventory arrives right before it's needed. So, like, they always have just in. I'm just trying not to say just in time. But
yeah, it's hard to say without saying just in time. But Walmart, my understanding is if you go buy a pair of jeans from Walmart, the minute that it's scanned, a signal is sent to the inventory that a new pair of jeans needs to be shipped to replace the one that was just purchased. So they only have so much in stock. They don't overstock anything. They don't put too much of one thing. And a lot of companies, Walmart has issues of things being seasonal. Obviously, if you go in there at Halloween, you see all the Halloween things, and of course Christmas is much different. They have different products, and then basically summer versus winter. It's hard to buy a lawnmower in January at Walmart because they're not really stocking lawnmowers in December and January. But when spring starts, they get a big supply of lawnmowers in there. So they try to not put a lot of investment in having more inventory than they need. So they want to have it just in time. And they've been obviously very, very successful, and a lot of companies do this now. But Walmart was one of the first retailers to actually do this. So they need to have information quickly. Question, is ICT the cause of globalization or the result of globalization? And to answer that question, I would say really it's kind of both. Once companies got bigger and bigger, they needed systems that could monitor all these aspects of their company. They needed an enterprise system. Or once these companies like SAP created the software that really worked with companies that had branches all over the world, then they were able to even expand even more. The book talks about some pros and cons of ICT. See, it's on page 4. So we can kind of look at that at the bottom of the page, kind of the good versus the bad of information technology. And mostly we're going to brag that it's good, but there are some pitfalls, there are some dangers as well. So towards the bottom of the page it says, significantly, the ability to communicate instantly via documents, voice, and video makes it unnecessary for everyone involved in designing and producing a product to be in the same location. In this sense, then, ICT enables, supports, and even encourages globalization. At the same time, however, organizations are becoming critically dependent on ICT. So they can't even operate without their enterprise systems. And so if something goes down, they're in trouble. Now these systems are enterprise systems are very expensive. They're very reliable software, but nothing is safe with computers. I've got a little article that I noticed a couple of days ago in, I forget which news site I went to. See if this pulls up. It talks about how malware, viruses and other types of malware, is really on the rise. And we have these companies that sell great protection software, like what do we use here at Delta State? McAfee, I believe. McAfee is one of the big companies, and there's 4 or 5 of them that really are pretty reliable. But they'll tell you that for every time they come up with one fix, 5 more hacks are available. So they're constantly working against these people. So it says, McAfee said that it had found more than 8 million new kinds of malware in the second quarter. That's just in 3 months. Up 23% from the first quarter. There are more than 9 million unique strands of malware. So there's so many hackers out there. And some of these hackers are, who are these hackers? You have a kind of a picture of a hacker. Oh, it's some, really smart, nerdy kid who figures out how to break into a system. And that's true. There's a lot of smart, nerdy kids who stay up all night. They can't get a date, so I'm just kidding. They, spend all this time on their computer.